Greetings, my lovelies. This is Blake here, and please try to ignore this band-aid on the side of my face, and welcome to my review of The Jungle Book, the 2016 live-action adaptation of the cartoon/novel, and as precise as my clarification as to which Jungle Book movie this is, it's really not going to be enough, because later on in the same year there's supposed to be another live-action adaptation of The Jungle Book, making me feel very overexposed to this material. But I guess every year has to have those two movies which are virtually the same in concept, that kind of duel with each other, so I guess that just means that The Jungle Book is this year's dueling material. So going into this, I was pretty indifferent for a while anyway. I remember seeing the teaser trailer and I was like, I like the cast, I like the director, but nothing about that really jumped at me. And then, as the release date approached, I still wasn't really seeing any full-length trailers or even TV spots. Granted, I don't watch a whole lot of television. So I was wondering if maybe the studio realized they did not have a very good movie, so we're just kind of like trying to get it out of the way without putting too much money in the marketing department. And then the reviews came in, and I started taking this much more seriously. So I actively sought out the trailer, and I thought it looked pretty damn good. It must have just been that I was missing, all the showings where they showcased this trailer, and it wasn't necessarily the studio's fault. And then for whatever reason, like a couple days before the release, nostalgia really started getting to me, and it occurred to me that The Jungle Book played a major role in my childhood. I'm sure I saw the famous cartoon dozens of times when I was a kid. I actually watched the sequel in theaters, even though that was past the age where I usually would have cared, and I don't really remember much about the sequel. From what I understand, it's not very good. But I do remember actually seeing it on the big screen. And I watched all the cartoons, like when they were all little cubs. I watched Tailspin. I remember that live-action movie from the 90s that was really fucking dark, where you see Shere Khan maul people to death, others drowning quicksand, or suffocating quicksand, I should say. I remember that they had that temple that's slowly filling with sand, and one guy gets crushed, and that I believe Treat Williams gets eaten by an anaconda. So that was some pretty edgy ass stuff, but as a kid I loved it. I actually probably should revisit that movie at the absolute least. So then I suddenly started getting really excited to check this one out, and I saw it and I was a little disappointed. I actually do think that this is a pretty good movie. It's just that the enthusiasm that other critics seem to feel, I did not feel that strongly about it. I thought it was a pretty good film. I just did not think it was a great film. And in many ways, I'm not entirely sure I'm going to remember this for a long period of time. So there's not really a whole lot for me to say. Its strengths and weaknesses are very broad, so this should not be a very long video. I thought the visuals were stunning. Apparently almost everything was CGI'd, but I thought the CGI looked very convincing. I liked how lifelike the animals themselves seemed. At no point did I think they looked phony, nor did I think that there was any kind of uncanny valley here where they just looked sort of unintentionally creepy. I thought the cinematography was breathtaking, and that's sort of weird saying that because so much of this was probably shot in front of a green screen. It's how can I really say that about the cinematography? But the visuals in general were just very eye-popping. I loved, for example, when Blue and Bagheera, and that's another reason this played a big role in my childhood. I remember the majority of the names. And with this shitty memory, that really says something. But when they're trying to find Mowgli, and they see him in like a distance, and you see like this clearing in the trees where he's holding a torch, and it's just a beautiful shot. And there's so many moments like that, such as like when you see in the poster where Mowgli and Bagheera are traveling, and you're just kind of watching them move from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, but just the way everything is set up, the use of the trees, it's beautiful, beautiful movie. The voice acting, for the most part, was very good too. It had a really big cast: Christopher Walken, Bill Murray, Sir Ben Kingsley, Scarlett Johansson, Idris Elba. I'm still not entirely sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And I thought they all did really good. Some better than others. I thought Idris Elba probably stole the show. He was very menacing as Shere Khan. Whenever that character is on screen, you're feeling that tension regardless of what he's doing. And that was a great casting choice. Bill Murray is having a blast, and he's very funny. I enjoyed most of this film's sense of humor. I laughed quite often. Ben Kingsley, oddly, I couldn't tell if he was the weak link or not, because on one hand, I thought he fit the role very well. You know, he has that diplomatic, I can't think of the right word, but sophisticated presence that Bagheera just has, so it makes sense. And I thought Ben Kingsley did good when he's just talking or being normal, but whenever he yelled, it didn't really seem like he was giving it his all. Like there was something very reserved in his voice, so that sort of lessened the dramatic tension just a little bit. But that might not be the actor's fault. Maybe it was just the sound mixing. I couldn't really tell, but whenever Ben Kingsley was alarmed, or he's yelling in some capacity, it just sounded weird to me. But yeah, everybody else, Christopher Walken is playing Christopher Walken, playing King Louis, but it works fine. Scarlett Johansson kind of caught all of us off guard by being fairly chilling in her one scene. And I remember in the teaser trailer, it's like built around her confrontation with Mowgli. Well, she's literally only in that one scene, but still, what a scene it was. The kid, really good child actor. I really, he sold me on the emotions that he went through. He had no problems delivering the dialogue. One thing I also really liked about this movie is they make Mowgli much more proactive, it seemed like, where he actually is a fairly bright kid who uses traps to his advantage, and that creates some conflict with his animal friends, but he did a lot more this time than at least based on my memory of the original cartoon, and I liked that. So, well done movie, but where did it go wrong? Well, it really, really feels like they made some last minute changes, which really affected the narrative. Now, I don't know what really went on behind the scenes, but around halfway through, they have a musical number between Baloo and Mowgli, and it's just the bare necessities. And I was like, that's kind of odd, but I decided to just go with it because they established that Baloo likes singing. It's a character quirk, and Mowgli is obviously very much being influenced by this character, so at least like nobody else was really joining in on the song, so you could just presume it's like, once again, character quirks. But then later on, King Louis starts singing, and it's like at that point it's a straight up musical number, and that felt very out of place. My own suspicion is that the film was actually designed to be a musical, and at the last moment they just decided to, because it was already so much darker and edgier than previous Jungle Book adaptations, well, except the 90s one, but darker and edgier than what we would have thought it to be. They just figured that maybe the songs were just kind of out of place, so they just decided to remove as many as possible, and the only reason they kept in the bare necessities and I Want to Be Like You, I believe the song's called, is because it revealed too much of the characters' motivations, and so it wouldn't have, those characters wouldn't have been able to stand out as much without those songs. So they thought those were the necessary ones, and the reason why they wouldn't have done any reshoots besides the money issue is that the kid probably has aged quite a bit since initial production, and by the time the reshoots would have taken place, I could be wrong, but that's what it really felt like to me. Like they had to keep those musical numbers in, but at the same time they just don't fit. You either establish yourself as a musical very early on. You don't really go into that direction around the halfway point and then later. Because once again, I could accept the Bare Necessities song, but the King Louie one happens like right before the third act of the movie. So that's just way too late, and it kind of kills the tone, even though the song wasn't bad. And another more evidence that kind of supports my theory is during the end credits, even though I missed this, apparently there are other songs, like Ka sings a song. So they cut that out of the movie and presumably just left the audio in for the end credits. That was weird. And the ending I also took some issues with too. I don't want to really explain what, because I don't want to spoil anything, but I kind of thought the message was a little odd, and the tone, it just didn't really fit the tone. But otherwise, this was still a very exciting and entertaining movie. If you like The Jungle Book, you should check it out. If you have kids and you want to take them to a movie, I'd still say this is a pretty solid kids film. The type of film I would have loved in my younger age. Yeah, some people might think it's too edgy, but I'd still say it's tame enough for younger audiences. And it's still, I thought, a good film. Not really a classic. I think it would have been more interesting if it was more closer to the book than the cartoon, but it's a Disney movie, so I guess I have to accept that. And I enjoyed it, so you should watch it. Particularly, once again, if you want to take your kids, or if you happen to like The Jungle Book, or maybe if you just thought the previews looked really good, or the positive reviews really intrigued you, because I thought this was a solid movie. So that is all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please check out my website. I finally finished the entirety of the Howling franchise. I also reviewed WrestleMania and NXT TakeOver Dallas. If you're into wrestling, follow me on Twitter and Facebook. You could find more information in the Show More section below. And I shall see you guys later.